Let's talk to Sam Armstrong, though, because the big story this morning, really, Sam, very good morning to you, is about energy, isn't it? You know, here we are with a government grasping for any kind of, you know, money that they can stretch their way to take off us, whether it's coming from inheritance tax, whether it's coming from your you know, capital gains tax, whether they're putting, you know, more pressure on you to pay more council tax. They've now worked out we're just going to put energy prices up, despite the fact that they said that they were supposed to be going to bring them down.
Yeah, I hate to break it to you, Mike, but Ed Miliband lied. He lied to you, he lied to the country, he lied to millions of millions.
How do they keep getting away with these lies, though? This is the thing that I think people are really getting depressed about and quite cheesed off.
Well, I think for the last 30 years, they basically have got away with the lies on the basis that, you know, they got really, really good at spinning it and controlling the media, the narrative, etc.
Yeah.
But I think because of stations like Talk, because of others, because of social media, increasingly the bubble is bursting. And that's why you're seeing so many people running off to the likes of Reform, because people are not prepared to accept anymore. There's just this cycle of broken promises. And energy is only something that's come up more recently. But, you know, migration, they've been claiming for 30 years they were going to cut it while ballooning it, and them and their mates got rich in the process. And we have been told every Monday, Mike, you will remember, I will remember, for the last 10, 15 years, we've been sent some stupid press release from the Home Office claiming that they're going to do this latest wheeze to cut migration is finally going to be the one that works. Yeah. And they just expect us to keep sucking it up. And for a while it worked. But I think the British public have cottoned on to what is going on, and increasingly they're saying no.
Yeah. Exactly right. But we don't really have much choice. I mean, I asked a question. I've asked it to two different people so far this morning. One was Ross Clark, who's written a piece in The Sun, and the other was a sort of energy consultant. Why is it that we have to be the the mugs, if you like, who subsidise not only the green energy targets of the government, but also the fossil fuel targets of the government? Because I'm told that in every single part of every single energy bill that everybody gets through the door every month, there's a portion of it which pays for a subsidy to both fossil fuel producers of energy and also green producers of energy. Why are we doing that?
Well, Mike, because politicians need retirement jobs. And there's plenty of these energy companies, there's plenty of these international organisations that are more than happy to stick a politician on their board if only they've signed up to this mental climate policy programme. And look, never mind the fact that it's ridiculous in the first place. Never mind the fact that China, Brazil, India, all the rest of it are adding vastly more carbon onto their emissions than we have ever going to be able to cut in the Western world. Never mind the fact it's not going to work. These are politicians that consistently, one after another, leave politics, go into well-paid, very cushy jobs in this sector time and time again, and you and me and everybody listening are the mugs that are just expected to pay for it. We don't matter in the least to the people who have been running our country.
But are we singularly kind of singled out, if you like, as the sort of the stupidest consumers of all time? Because, you know, we know it's going on, we know that we're being ripped off, and yet we continue to allow it to happen, and nobody really kind of puts their hands up and goes, hang on a minute, we shouldn't be being charged this ridiculous amount of subsidy.
Well, I do think there is a national awakening on this topic, in which both the Conservative Party and Reform have said no more, and of course they have to, because it's not just bad for consumers' bills. It's not just 300 quid extra for us. It's the fact that energy or electricity to make stuff in this country is 4 times as expensive as it is in the United States. Right. And that's a really simple consequence. The United States still has industrial jobs. You can still go up, do an honest job in America, work hard, earn a decent salary, bring up a family on it. Those jobs were decimated in this country. There's a lot of reasons for that, but the biggest reason today why you haven't got big jobs in primary steel, making stuff, manufacturing, heavy industry, is because it costs 4 times as much to use energy in this country than it does in the US. And then we wonder why all the jobs get shipped overseas.
I mean, I was always fascinated by America. I'm going there tomorrow, later on today, actually. I keep saying tomorrow, it's actually later on this afternoon. I went to California back in 2019, I think it was, and I was staggered to see sort of an oil derrick in the back of somebody's garden. You know, you literally drive around Los Angeles and you go, oh, look, there's an oil derrick, and there's a bloke he's just got a house and he's got his own oil derrick and he's bringing his own oil up from the ground. But here we've got from the Times on the front page this morning, Ofgem confirming that the bill that we get every single month includes paying for wind farms in remote locations to switch off because the cabling network can't take their power to where it's needed. And they also pay other generators, such as gas plants, closer to consumers to fire up to replace them. So we're paying basically for people, and this is the thing that really I think galls everyone, is that we're paying for people who run very successful companies who make an awful lot of money. We're paying for them to actually get rich.
Yeah, we are, and a good number of them in turn give a load of money to the Labour Party. Surprise, surprise.
Well, look at Dale Vince. There was a story in the Mail this week that said Dale Vince has been in receipt of £3.5 million worth of contracts from Sadiq Khan's office in London.
Yeah, and then he's also handing money to Extinction Rebellion to shut down our streets. It's a racket, Mike. It is a racket. These people are getting rich off the back of it. You don't need to think of anything other than the fact of money. There is no explanation needed. It is greed. It is greed that is driving the politicians, the industry bodies, all of the people that are involved in these massive organisations that spend their entire life lobbying. They spend their entire life complaining about what is said on broadcasters. No doubt this interview will get complained about.
Yeah.
This is a total racket designed...
I've been getting a lot of complaints lately. I'm getting used to it. But, you know, the interesting thing is that, you know, it doesn't go away. And you know, I've been watching with some admiration the way that the nation has kind of awoken, if you like, and started, you know, putting flags on, you know, motorway bridges, started going out and demonstrating against migrant hotels. You know, there is a certain kind of, you know, revolution going on quietly in this country. And I wonder when it will affect what we do in terms of energy, because it's time, I think, that we had a revolt about that as well.
Yeah, well, with the country's past breaking point, and there is going to be a great awakening, and it's going to come at the time of the next election. And it can't come soon enough when this rotten government is turfed out. Now, precisely who replaces them, I don't know. And I do worry about votes getting split on the other side. And I think there are concerns to be had. But what I will say is this: I have never known the British public as concerned, as energised, as activated about what is going on in our politics. And I just think they have reached a point where they are not prepared to be lied to any longer.
Yeah, exactly right. Let's talk about Nigel Farage, because, you know, the week, if you were to say, you know, sum up the week in politics, and I'm summing it up because I'm not going to be here tomorrow, has very much been sort of dominated, if you like, by Nigel Farage's press conference yesterday, not least because Reform is so good at actually organising press conferences. You know, they've got, I was lucky enough to be shown around their headquarters down on Milbank, but they've got an entire floor now, which is full of people who are working on raising money, working on PR, working on, you know, individual kind of, you know, elections and by-elections and places where they can gain more reform councillors and all the rest of it. And it's just a fascinating, you know, organisation. But what Nigel Farage is very good at, and what he did very well, was to capture the imagination of the entire nation, get himself on the front pages, and talk about migration in a way that no other party has done. And everybody else is kind of trailing in his wake at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, although I am a bit concerned about this flip-flop from him. I mean, we do have a problem with women and children breaking their way into this country to engaging in, at times, criminality, engaging in taking away the services that the British public needs. And I am concerned that a little bit over the last year, are we losing some of the old Nigel? And you've got fellows like Zia Yusuf hanging around. This is a man that resigned to save the burqa. He resigned in protest at the party saying it was going to ban the burqa. They've kept him around. They're desperate to keep him. And then you kind of see this strange kind of softening from his policies. And I do wonder, you know, what happened to the Nigel that we knew of old?
No. Well, which bit are you not sure about? Because, I mean, I think the trouble is that because he's under so much scrutiny, he gets asked questions that nobody else is asked, right? He says things that nobody else says. He's basically said, look, we're going to deport 600,000 people. I think that's a pretty straightforward policy, isn't it?
Well, I want to see every single, and there's an awful lot more than 600,000, every single illegal migrant sent home. I want them all gone, and that includes the women, that includes the children. I don't care if they arrive so-called unaccompanied. Most of them that claim to be under the age of 18, as far as I can see, actually turn out to be 35-year-old blokes with beards. And I don't want any exceptions. I think at the end of 30 years of mass migration, I accept Nigel Farage entirely blameless in that. But at the end of that, I want to see an absolute no exceptions, no exemptions policy. If you came into this country, if you broke in here, if you stole the place of a more deserving refugee, if you sucked off the services to which you were not entitled, I want you gone. And I don't think Nigel needs to soften himself in order to get into office. And look, I've been around politics a long time. I always worry about politicians that when they're stood on the precipice of power and they're just desperate to finally get hold of it, that's when the exceptions, the lawyers, the special interests creep in. And my plea to reform would be, look, if you want to get in, if you want to save this country in the way you say you wish to, then you've got to stay solid. And I do worry that Nigel, just a little bit in the past few weeks, why are we saying that we're going to let men into women's prisons, these kind of things? Yeah. I do worry that maybe there's a bit of softness coming in.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, it's a relevant criticism and one that we will put to him when we get him on next. And I think the thing is about, the reality of power is that those are the kinds of questions from people like yourself that will be asked. And so, the proof will be in the pudding, won't it? If he's going to be a leader, if he's going to be a proper, democratically elected leader of the country, he's going to have to answer an awful lot of questions like that. And hopefully he'll have the right answer.
Well, look, I think that's right. And reform have got a lot of growing up to do. And there's no doubt that Nigel lacks a bit of a team around him that is capable of governing in the way that you need to affect the kind of massive sea change that this country needs. Look, let me be very clear. I think literally every structure of government in this country needs turning upside down, over and out. We need a complete clear out of the civil service. We need a complete clear out in great parts of the judiciary in this country. And we need to start again, because on every metric, by every standard, this country has been going inexorably downwards in a spiral, further and further and further and further again. And it is a crisis. It is a crisis of the fact that people can't get a GP appointment. It's a crisis in the fact that we've got standards in schools that are so low. It's a crisis in the level of crime that people are forced to endure, the sheer disgustingness of streets in our capital. All of this is a crisis. None of this is meant to happen. You look at countries around the world that are going great gangbusters and are seeming to be going down the Swanee, and what that calls for is massive change, massive change. So Nigel needs to have not just his own, good old self back, but he needs to have, if he wants to deliver the kind of mission that he's talking about, a team of epic proportions of the best and brightest of British politics that are capable of going into these organisations, going into these structures of the state and saying, no, you're all fired. We're bringing in a new team. This is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it, and get on with it from day one. Because boy, oh boy, will the establishment try and fight back against him.
Sam, good to talk to you as ever. Thank you very much indeed. Sam Armstrong, political consultant, Free Speech Union, saying that, there are things that reform needs to do. There's no question about that.